Hello and welcome back. In this tutorial, I'll be discussing how to model this robot using 3ds Max. So now let's switch to Krita to do some more analysis. So let's create a new canvas. Let's copy the image and paste it. So let's create a new layer just to do more. So just to draw it over. So right here, we have a cylinder. So we will be creating this first, so it's a lot simple. But at the top of the cylinder, this looks chamfered. Or maybe if we want to, we can start with a sphere and then extrude it into a cylinder. So you have unlimited options, right? So I'll go with the sphere, but before I can start with anything, let me start with the reference image. Let's make sure angle snap is on and rotate it 90 degrees. Let's move it up and move it back. Press M for materials and drag any materials to it. Make sure this material is active. You can see the white highlight around that material. And right here we can pick a map. So let's pick a map and let's pick bitmap. And we have this image saved into our desktop. And by the way, this is not my artwork. I just found this image on Pinterest. So as I have said before, we'll start with the head. So let's make sure this image is locked so I wouldn't select it by mistake. So we right click and pick object properties. And right here, let's freeze it, and let's make sure that show frozen in gray is off. It's not checked in, so it should be unchecked. Then press OK. And now you cannot select this image. So let's start with the head. So as I have said before, you can do it with a cylinder. So create a cylinder, move it up, So if we press F4, we can see the wireframe, and this seems to have a lot of sides, so let's reduce it to maybe 10, and that's converted to an editable poly. And in order to make the top to look smooth, let's select polygon, select the top one, and let's chamfer it, or bevel it. So this is the goal, and if we use a Swift loop, press and hold shift, this would make it a smoother curve. And let's connect the top because we do not want n-gons, so let's select cut, and let's just make those connections. And now we do not have an n-gons anymore. Those sides seems to be not necessary, so let's select those. So I double click on the side and it selects the edge loop, and so right now I will press Ctrl and backspace to remove the edges and the vertices, and we are almost done. So let's take a look at the top. So it seems that the top is part of the mesh, so let's do that. It shouldn't take much. All we need to do is just select that and inset, and then move it to the top just a little bit. Inset again and move it to the top. Undo, make sure you accept the changes and move it to the top. And let's do it one more. So this time there would be a hard inset, so like we wouldn't move it anywhere. So let's inset. Let's make sure we don't do it by a lot because the geometry has been modified. Let's adjust some of those vertices. So let's select those two vertices and scale them in. Looking from the top view, I think we need to reorganize our typology, so let's delete those edges and let's make this connection right here, and let's delete that. So I'm using Control backspace. So we're aligning it with the grid so that it makes it easier to do the scaling. So let's switch back to polygon and let's do another inset and extrude. So based on the image, so we do extrude. So let's take a look at it from far. So let's just scale it a little bit and move it down. So it does look like the edge is not that smooth. So what we do is, so we always have to compare to the image, and we try to the best of our ability to build something similar. So maybe this one, we don't move it, you just move it down a little bit. This edge is not needed, so let's double select it, double click it, so we select the edge loop and backspace, control and backspace. Let's select the outer edge, maybe make it a bit wider. Let's switch back to vertices, select those top vertices and maybe move them down a little bit. So it does look a bit smooth around the edges. So what you could do is, we have this edge loop selected, so you could chamfer it just a little bit, not a lot. Okay, much better. And we can see that the extrusion is big part of the head. So based on this, so we need to do some changing. So let's remove a lot of those edges. Let's select the top vertices. We can go into X-ray mode by pressing Alt X. Let's select those vertices, move them down just a little bit and scale them up. And make them longer. Let's select the top one and move it up, and let's use the edge loop to make this a bit smoother by shift and click. So I think we are done with the face. What we can do is just move it up. So let's go back to the reference image and maybe move it aside, so for better reference. So we can, what we can do is, since this is, we cannot select it, we can activate the layer explorer, select the image. You can see the ice or maybe the snowflake is on, so we click on it and now it becomes unfrozen. So let's move it to the side and freeze it again, and you can tell it's frozen by the text also as being italicized. Let's go back to the image, to the layers, and just remove those length and width segments. And let's do the comparison. So far it looks good. And let's build the bottom part. So we can tell this is part of the mesh. So let's make a duplicate of it. And let's go into edit mode. And let's add a layer tool right here and just insert an edge. We can go into X-ray, so we can select all the necessary vertices. We switch back to transform tool by pressing W, and then select those vertices and delete. And right here it goes around the center, so we find the center and delete any excess vertex. The next step is, since we have inherited the origin from here, right now we can just snap it back. So let's make sure this is centered, so we can tell this is not. Let's zero this out. Make sure the W or the transform tool is on. And now let's select this and zero it out. Let's select the edges, select these two edges, and maybe just extrude it out a little bit so it is nice and flat. And so we can tell this is a bit straight, so let's add an edge. So I will use symmetry to mirror the changes because I don't want to make changes on both sides. So let's select the 1/2 polygons and delete it. And using the modifier, let's add a symmetry modifier. Let's switch back to the object level and let's make sure that show results is on, just to see how it looks like from the other side. For now, let's make sure these layers are flushed out straight. So the way we can do that, there are two ways to do it. We can use a scale and just to the best of your ability and move it forward. The other way is you can use make planar, so you just need to know the axis. So this seems to be looks like on the z-axis, so no, maybe x-axis. So yeah, it would be on the x-axis. So if we undo, just to show you, press x-axis and now it's been flattened out. And then we select these two edges and move it up. And we could tell that these two edges, it is curvy on here, so let's move this down. And what we can do is we select this edge and chamfer. So you can play with the settings. I don't know a lot of those settings, to be honest, so I'm just testing to see. Because I would like to see a lot more curvature, and I'm wondering if they have the options for that. So okay, so I'm not seeing that, so So what do we do in this case? Because this is somewhat unacceptable. So what we can do is we press this edge, we chamfer it, maybe we add few chamfers. Let's do like a uniform one, maybe 5. So we somewhat, it's equal side, maybe not. So let's select those edges. Select loop, and then we scale. Make sure this is centered so we can scale it across. And then what we do is we select those edges, vertices, and pick FFD modifier, and let's pick something with 3 controller points. So we select this one and move it up, so this looks much better than before. And if we did 4x4 modifier, so maybe the results would be a lot better. So let's select those vertices, so we already have them selected. FFD 4x4x4, and we have 4 control points, so we need to select the middle one, and we can scale it so it looks a lot nicer. So this is very close to what we want, and let's do collapse too, and then yes. So we keep the symmetry in case we are doing more modifications. So right now this seems like a lot of geometry. Let's see if we can get rid of some. So this does not look good. Since this is meant for a game object, I will just merge those. So I would like to be the option of, like, when you weld, this gives you the distance, so that's what we need. So let's do the bottom. Perfect. And now let's select all the polygons, and let's just extrude. So what's the issue here? Because this is a mirror, it's not, it will not maybe behave as we would like it to. So let's exit this out, and let's do collapse all. So let's deselect everything, make sure we are at the object level, select symmetry and collapse all. And now we can select all the polygons and then extrude. So we do it by local norm, reduce it just a little bit, and right now we have the jaw. Maybe we can scale it a little bit. And let's change the materials. So let's exit from X-ray mode and select both. Press M for material, select an empty material and apply it to the selection. And the wireframe, the only reason the wireframe is this color because of this, so we can switch it to black. And now let's make the eyes. So the eyes seems to be also another cylinder, so let's create a cylinder. Let's remove the height segment, let's make it to turn it to 1. Let's rotate it 90 degrees, make sure angle snap is on and move it up. So move it in, and let's convert it to an editable poly. Select the back face and move it in. So we can tell this face is being inserted and then extruded in. So you want to go the other way. So we can see here this is being way out, and this does not seem to be all the way out. So the front area could be a little bit flattened. So if you want to do that, we can pick an FFD. So we have both objects selected, so it will apply the modifications to it. So maybe we can select these controller points and just move it in to make it a little bit flat, just a little bit, even though the curvature here seems to be so. Let's undo that and undo again. Maybe this one is a bit closer to the center. Let's create a symmetry. So let's apply a symmetry. So this will apply it on the object level. So we want to change it to the head level. So what we do is we select the mirror, apply make sure the transform tool is on, and let's apply the snap settings, but this time let's right click and change it to pivot. And now let's look for the heads pivot. So it would be right here, and now it's centered. So right here, if we make any changes, let's make sure this is shown. Let's turn off snap tool. So you have to be sure that you are at the sub level in order to make those changes and being visible. So let's take a look here. Maybe this is way in. this is a little bit flat, so maybe we need to add some more geometry to it. Let's make sure it's a bit bigger, because it looks like 1/3 of the body. Maybe a little bit bigger. And move it up. This looks like it's being maybe some curvature to it, so maybe I'm just speculating, like so let's move that in a little bit just to add the curvature, and let's select this edge loop, move it up. So let's keep undoing. Let's add this regularly and then move it up and scale. Let's select this one, scale also. Okay, much better. Let's go back to polygon, maybe move it up a little bit, and then what we do is let's give it some insert. Let's do another insert and then bring it forward. And let's apply the same material. So we press M for material and then apply it to the object. Let's select this and change this to black. And now let's move on to the head, to the body. So the body, it's the same. It's using a sphere, a cylinder. It's a little bit, from the looks of it, a little bit wider than the head. Or maybe a bit thinner. And let's convert that to an editable poly, and right here close to the top this, it looks like it's a curvature, so it would go like as a cylinder, then it curves. So let's do that. I could be mistaken, so it is open for interpretation. So like I'm not sure. I just make the best of it. So let's go to polygon, select the top, and we do a bevel. Let's accept the changes. So let's select. So the way to do that is you press one face and you select and hold Control, and then double click the next face. And let's move that a little bit down. Let's move this up. Maybe make it a bit smaller. And right here we can see an extrude. So let's add another edge loop. And then let's select the face, let's exit from it and make sure we are in transform tool, and control hold and double click and extrude. So we press on the settings just to see the options. Let's do by local normal and make that little. Yeah, that looks good. Let's accept the changes. Let's go into an X-ray mode, and the reason for that is because we want to see the vertices that we are about to select. We do not want to select any unwanted vertex, and let's move that up. It does look like there's a little bit of curvature, so let's switch back to, let's select the Swift loop. I'm going to hold shift just to make a curvature insert, sorry, and then we select that. Now it is curvy, but it's too curvy for us, so let's make it a little bit settle. And right here, the edge here is too defined. Maybe we can chamfer it just to add a little bit of curvature to it. So make sure, because this is still open, it will, like if you select something else, like a different edge, it will change the focus to that, so we do not want that. So double click that, and maybe, yeah, so we just want to make it a little bit smoother, and then we accept the changes. So the body seems a bit shorter, so in shorter from where, not the whole thing, just from the top. So let's make that a little bit shorter, and then let's exit from X-ray mode just to see how it looks, and let's press F4 just to see without the wireframe. So right here, it's the edges on this area is a bit too defined, and we do not want that. So a way around it is to use polysmooth. So let's select that, so let's go into X-ray mode and just like select those edges, and if we scroll down we can see smoothing group. So let's select something, maybe a 1. Let's exit from it. Let's exit from X-ray mode and press F4, and we can see it looks a lot better. Now let's apply the same material as the face, and we could do the same thing for the eye. So if we exit from that object and access the face, we go into the polygons and we select those faces. We can select the same group just to make it look smooth, and if we press F4, sorry, it looks a lot better. So now let's switch back to the body. Let's press M for materials, and let's apply the material to it so it's uniform. And now let's go back, let's go to the neck. And right here I've noticed the jaw is a bit lower than the face, so let's scroll that a little bit. Let's make that a little bit lower. And now let's add the neck. Neck is a simple cylinder. We just create one and move it up. So let's make sure it's centered on the X and the Y axis. Make it a bit thin. And move the body a little bit up, and that's it. And now let's move to the legs. So the legs is made of a cylinder, so we have like 3 cylinders and a box, so it's a very simple construction. So let's create a cylinder. Let's press F4 to see the polygon information on it. So it seems a bit too high, so let's make it maybe 8. And it seems it's a short thigh. Let's add another one by pressing shift and drag down. So we made the leg. Now let's make the leg by creating a box, and we can see an extrusion here. So let's center the box to the cylinder. So the way to do that is we activate the snaps, and since it is, we have set it before to pivot, all we have to do is just shift it to that pivot, then turn off snap by pressing S. Let's bring that down just a little bit. Let's look at the reference. So let's go into an editable poly to make some more modifications to it. So from the looks of it, the polygon is a bit out. Could be mistaken. It seems like it is going out, or is it going in? So I'm gonna go with my guess of going out. So let's make the top a little bit narrower just to mimic that. Let's make the box a little bit. Let's move the whole box. And it seems a bit long, so let's switch back to face and make that a bit smaller. And now let's make that extrusion. So to do that, there are 2 ways of doing it. We can add an edge loop, and we select the polygon and we do an inset, and then we extrude. Or we just do an inset, inset, then we okay the changes. If we're not doing anything else with the box, this does seem like an okay solution, but I wouldn't be comfortable with it, especially having edges extended all the way from the end of the shoe all the way to the center. So I will undo. So I will go with this, just have the polygons and do an inset and then extrude. So maybe we'll make this a little bit wider. Maybe make this just to give it some character. And the thigh and the calf seems to be a bit narrower, so let's make that a little bit narrow. And then we have this. So it looks like it's a cylinder. So let's make, so we already have a cylinder right here, so let's create that. So we make a duplicate. We'll make it a little bit shorter and a little bit wider. And from the looks of it, let's convert that to an editable poly. So we have these two edges removed and these two faces a bit wider, so let's make that wide. And taller. Okay, I think that looks good. Okay, so let's select all of these and maybe we can group them. Later on, if we want to rig it, we must break the group, but for now we just want to make it easier to move it closer to the body. So the way to do that is we turn on snap. So we want 3D snap, and we just want to move it to the pivot of the body. So this one does not seem to be part of the group, so let's group them. Or we can go into the layers if we want to, so we can take a look at the group. So if we select the legs, you can see the layer, they are automatically selected. So this is one of them. I'm wondering if we can drag it. No, it doesn't. So let's break the group, let's ungroup, and then select all of them and group again. And we can see it right here. Okay. Now let's move the pivot all the way to the top. So the way to do that is again with snap. Right click on snap, and maybe this time we can just change the snap to face. So because we wanna change the pivot to the top face. Now let's go to hierarchy right here and click on effect pivot, and then we change it to the face. This is good. And now let's right click on snap and change that to pivot, and move it to the body. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. Let's exit from snap and move it to the right location. So from the looks of it, the legs is a bit too tall, so we need to make that a bit too small. So let's ungroup. Let's make this a bit smaller. Move to the top, and this a bit smaller too. and move that also to the top. Perfect. So let's activate materials and apply those. So let's select group select, let's press the next tool and apply selection to materials by pressing this. Let's select everything and let's change the color to black so it's uniform. And if we want to see it on the other side, we can group select and we can go under edit and select the symmetry. And again, as before, so the axis, we need to change the mirror, so we do that by using snap, and let's change that to pivot. So it is on, so let's change that to pivot. And now we have the arm. So the arm, what does it construct of? Half a sphere, then 2 cylinders, and a hand. So we already have this with the legs, so we'll reuse those. So it does seem to have the same shape for the ankle as the leg, or for whatever that is. All we need to do is make the hand. So the hand is simple. Let's go to top view and let's create a box. And let's take a look at the hands. So you have 4 fingers. So let's make, and it looks like each finger is equivalent, each link is equivalent to half of the hand. So let's create another one. So let's make sure the thickness is good and go back to top view and let's add another box. So let's turn on snap, and this time we make sure it is to vertex, so we can create so this is one. So let's undo. Let's create a box again, and then awesome. So let's create 2 more. So press shift and so let's do it to the best of our ability. So let's make two copies, and right here we make sure that if we press the vertex we can move it, and since we have snappings on, we can snap to another object's vertex. And let's make this a bit smaller. So in this case what we do is we activate the pivot, and let's and then let's move it up. Let's turn off snap and move it up a little bit. And also we can do 2 snaps, so we only like, I think that's constrained to only to 2 axes. So so we just have a visual. We can also do a constraint to an edge, so, and this one right here, let's snap it to a vertex. Let's take a look, and so let's make those another separate box. So let's make those a bit shorter, and then move it down. And then we press shift and create. And let's create the thumb. So we can shift, let's make it a bit shorter and move it up, move it down, sorry. Let's rotate, sorry, yeah, like that. And I think that is good. And let's rotate that a little bit just to give it some character. Let's rotate that by 20 degrees, 25 degrees. Let's move that down. And let's also rotate that another 15 degrees maybe. And let's okay. And let's apply the same materials. So press M, apply material to selection, and now let's group it. So I would be going after a T-pose, so let's make that smaller and move it closer to the body. So it seems the arm is right here. Okay, and now let's create the arm, so we can use that. As I said before, we can use those as a reference. So since they have the mirror modifier applied to them, let's delete that. And now let's rotate that by 90 degrees, because if you look at the image, it seems the white side is pointing to the right. So 90 degrees, and let's rotate that, I don't know, 30 degrees. And let's make that higher, longer, so we can do a local, and then just make it longer. That's good. So we are getting there. Just want to make that pointed like that. Yeah. Just to give it like that humanistic look. So Let's go into polygons, select all and rotate. Okay. And now let's make the half sphere. So it's simple. Just create a sphere. And then let's create a grid so we can see that sphere. And let's press F4 to see the segments. And let's make that, I don't know, 10. Maybe 11 just to see a half side to it. Let's make it 12. 12 looks good. Let's make it into an editable poly. And select 1/2 and delete it. And maybe at the top here, let's remove some of the edges. So we'll turn it into a quad. And then let's give it a shell modifier, just to give it a thickness. Let's make it a little bit thick. Let's turn that, undo, and let's change the pivot to the top. And as I said before, just use snap to make your life easier. So we use a vertex and move that to right here and apply the changes. And now we can change the angle. So let's make this smaller. Maybe. Okay, looks good. And right here we can remove some of those edges as well, just to make it look like a quad. So let's turn off snap and just move that a little bit higher, maybe just like that. Okay. Just to give it a little bit of accuracy, let's create that and maybe give it a local rotation, maybe just to make it a little bit more interesting. Let's make that a bit smaller. The finger is a bit too high, so let's open and go into sub object and just fix that. Okay, looks a lot better. And now we can do close. Okay, and here let's apply the materials to it. And as we have done before, we just select this and give it a symmetry modifier. We select the mirror and then we turn on snap, right click on snap and change it to pivot, and let's change that to the body's pivot. So we are almost there. So right here, this is, let's go into the legs mode. So it does seem a bit unnatural, so maybe we can give it some rotation. Let's move that a little bit to the front. Let's turn off snap and maybe give that a little bit of rotation, move that to the back and move these legs to the back just to give it character. So let's select these two again. So let's go into an editable poly. Select all and then rotate. And then we add another symmetry modifier and that's it. Okay. And all we have to do now is just give it an antenna, which is very simple. We can do that using a spline and using a line. And the reason for that is because maybe we want to make it a little bit curvy. So let's go to the front and create a spline. If we want, we could have done also using a NURB, so I think it's the same idea. The good thing about NURBS is you can make it curvy, and same thing. So let's go into default shading. Let's press the NURB and let's add a thickness to it. Let's make sure it is so I'm not seeing it. So let's convert that into so I'm not seeing anything, so let's undo that. I don't know much about it, but here at least we can see it. Yeah, for some reason it is under render and it is enabled. But we're still not seeing it. I'm not sure why. So what happens if we do editable mesh? Oh, now we can see it. So that's a bit too thick for us. So let's drag down to So if we do like add an editable poly on top of it, or editable mesh, yeah, so if we keep that on, then we can see how it looks like. Maybe change that to 8, and then collapse all, and then convert to editable poly. So let's remove the line for now. This looks a lot better, so let's move that to here. So I don't feel like adding another sphere to it, so I just repurpose this. I will add, just go into the edge mode, give this an edge and just make it wider. There we go. And using Swift tool, just give it some more details, and use your scale tool to make it wider. Let's make the scale local, and let's make the move also local. And let's add the bolt right here. So before we move ahead again, let's apply the materials to everything and change the color to black. Sorry, everything. Change the color to black and press M and apply the material. And now finally all we need is to add a bolt right here, so maybe we can repurpose this. So change it up, and now let's go into the editable poly and let's change that to screen or view. That looks good. Let's make it smaller. And let's remove the shell element to it because we don't need that. And with the symmetry, so we need to adjust the mirror. So for now this seems like a lost cause, just delete it and let's apply symmetry again. And again, because of there's so much changes that happened to it, so we need to do a reset X form just to make it, just to reset it, so like it would be treated as if it was created newly. So we do that, and if we select it, let's do add an editable poly, sorry, symmetry. Now it's being treated normally. So let's change that and activate symmetry and then pivot, and let's move that to the faces pivot, and you can see it on the other side. So reset X form, it just reset the object as if it was created newly. So right here you can tell by the shape what's going on to it. If you needed to repurpose it, you must do like an reset the X form. Same thing with anything. If you change it from its normal orientation, and in the future you want to do like rigging to it, you want to add modifiers to it, you might need to do reset xform just to reset it to world orientation. And yeah, and that's it. So if you ever needed to rig that, you can always do. So let's group all of that together, and I just want to see the x-axis, so let's do a group. So we might want to center it on the x-axis and then ungroup. Turn off snap tool and just move this to the top. So to rig it, all you need to do is add a pipette. So at the end, this is what we created. Looks cool. Now you can unwrap it, texture it, rig it, animate it, and I will make this file available for anyone who wants to download it and play with it. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.